All right, everyone, so in this video, we're taking a look at the 7 different types of income that you can create for yourself so that you can diversify your sources of income. And these are the 7 basic sources of income that 98% of income sources fall into one of these categories. Just like with anything in life, just like with storylines, there's 7 basic types of storylines. Well, there's 7 basic types of income that you can have that many millionaires and billionaires are utilizing to build wealth. So if you're new here to the channel, you want to learn more about investing or making money or saving more money, then consider hitting the subscribe button for more videos like this one. We do our best to put out at least 1 to 2 videos per week on these topics. So let's get started with this. But before we actually start with the first one, we need to address something that is very commonly discussed in this topic, which is it better to have 1 income source, or is it better to have 10 income sources or 20 income sources? What's the best number of income sources to have? And maybe you've heard commonly that the average millionaire has 7 sources of income. Now, there's a lot of truth to that. When you look at these sources of income from millionaires, when you look at the studies, a lot of them do have multiple sources of income. But then on the flip side, you see people like Mark Cuban, for example, who built broadcast.net, or maybe it was .com, I don't know, I was barely alive then. But either way, he built this $5.9 billion company, and he focused on that one specific company, didn't focus on other income sources, and he put all of his guts into this one thing and built it up to billions of dollars. And he says that he did it, and he was able to do it because he wasn't distracted by trying to build 10 different sources of income, but rather one source of income, which was his business. So that's his idea behind that. But then on the flip side, there's many people who, just the average person, people like you and me, who just want to secure themselves and not get fired and then end up on the streets because you had one income source, which was your job, and nothing else. So in a lot of ways, I do think it's smart to have at least 2 to 3 or 4 different types of income, even if it's something that's passively running in the background while you're working on a business, while you're working on your job, while you're working on some other type of project that's earning you more money. But it's just something that you do want to consider because if you have 10 different sources of income or 20 different sources of income, there does come a point where it might become too much. And it could be something that we could consider what's called shiny object syndrome, which is when people are jumping around from one source to the next, trying to make money in all these different things, but they never become a master at any of them. And so that's why there's this saying that you could be a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And that's what happens to some people when they try to get too many income sources. So what I would personally do, try to find a balance. Maybe get 2 to 3 or 4 of these different types of income sources, and then scale it up over time as you start to make more money. People like Elon Musk, for example, he has SpaceX, that earns him some money. He has various different companies that maybe you haven't even heard of. The Boring Company, Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post. He owns Blue Origin. He has a lot of companies beneath just Amazon, which is his cash cow, but he has other ones to diversify a little bit to make him a little bit more money. So let's talk about the first one here. The first income source. This is very common. A lot of people have this, and in most cases, it's necessary to get your feet off the ground, and that is by having earned income. So earned income has a lot of pros and cons to it, but generally speaking, this is what I would say is one of the least desirable of these income sources, and I'm going to give you the reason for that. It's not bad. Everybody needs to start somewhere, but earned income, the point of this is that in a lot of cases, you're trading time for money. So this is one of the downsides to it. So think about your job, thinking about that if you have to go into work and your boss tells you that you have to come in at this time, and they say you can't take vacation on this day, and you are getting paid for the amount of hours that you're working. Maybe you're on a salary, you're getting paid on the amount of days that you're at your job, right? But either way, you're trading your time for your money. And this does have some negative downsides to it. One of them, on top of trading time for money, is that generally speaking, you might be taxed at a pretty high rate compared to some other things that you can do that I'm going to show you later on in this video. But you're generally going to be taxed at a max of about 37% in America for individual income tax. And then on top of that, maybe state taxes, maybe you have local taxes that could bring it upwards of 40% for earned income. But the truth is, earned income, it's very comfortable and it's predictable. And this is why a lot of people do like to start with earned income, or even just throughout their entire life, like to rely on earned income because it's something that you can rely on and it's comfortable. It's a job and it gets you to put food on the table. It can pay for your kids' school. It can pay for your rent in your apartment. And so that's what's really important, having earned income. Now, it does have some more downsides, and really the biggest downside of this is that it's difficult to retire solely on earned income. Because you're trading time for money, it's difficult to actually get ahead. Maybe you start saving a little bit of money, but just having earned income and just taking the money from your job, maybe saving a little bit, it's going to be difficult to retire on that because you're trading time for money. So relying solely on it might not be the best option. You might want to consider incorporating these other 6, 1 or 2 or 3 of these other 6 different types of income into what you're doing right now to hopefully generate a little bit more income and be able to retire much easier and better. So the next one here is what we call interest income. Now, interest income is when you're essentially going to be lending money to something. Maybe this is the bank, maybe this is a person. It's probably not the best idea to lend money to your friends or family. There's a couple reasons for that. Maybe we'll talk about that, but I think it's pretty obvious. Lending money to your friends and family might not be a good option, right? But let's say that you put money in the bank. Well, this is actually, you can view this as a loan to the bank because you're putting money in your bank account. They're not just putting it in a vault. They're actually taking this money and lending it out to other people. So you're giving a loan to the bank so that they can lend money to other people, right? Well, when you do that, they give you an interest rate. They might give you 1% interest on your bank account, maybe 2%, maybe 2.5% if you're using Wealthfront or CIT Bank or Discover or American Express banks where you might be getting a couple percent interest. Well, the way to view this, and what I was doing when I was young, when I was 12 years old, I had $200 in my bank account. I would wake up and say, you know what, last night I made 7 cents when I was sleeping. Throughout the day, over the span of 24 hours, I made 7 cents in interest because the bank will pay you interest for letting you or letting them have your money and use your money. So every day I was making 7 cents. At the end of the week, that was a free 50-cent Frosty from Wendy's. And that was a really cool thing when I was 12. So you can just apply this to larger amounts of money. If you have thousands of dollars in something that you are loaning money, you're lending money to different things, this is where it can really start to add up. And the key here is that you're making your money work for you. This is the key concept that people don't do with earned income. Earned income, you're trading time for money. In interest income, you're trading money for more money because you're letting somebody else use your money, right? So you're loaning money out to somebody, you're lending money to somebody, and you're making money on top of that. It's a great way to earn passive income. You can make this regardless of how much income you have, how much money you have. Even just $100, you can get started with it to diversify a little bit, even if it's just a little bit at first. Now, the next one is a little bit different. It's what we call dividend income. Now, this is different from interest income. So dividend income is when you actually own a portion of a company. So let's say that you own stocks, right? So stocks is a great example here, where what happens here, and I remember when I was 11, I bought 1 share of Cedar Fair. It was like $12. I think it was $12 for that share. I paid a $10 transaction fee. It didn't really make much sense, but I had no idea what I was doing. So when I did this, I actually gained some ownership of this multi-billion-dollar company. As an 11-year-old, no idea what I was doing. I gained ownership of part of this company. It was a very tiny fraction of this company, but theoretically, technically, I did have say in what this company was going to do. You could vote as a shareholder at the shareholder meetings. I got invited to the shareholder meeting when I was 11 for owning 1 share that was worth barely any money to actually get there, but they also sent me some free tickets for Cedar Fair Amusement Park for being a shareholder. So shareholder benefits right there. But the idea here is that you're owning a part of a company. You're owning a very small portion of a company, and with this, you can get dividends. You get dividends from the company. This doesn't have to be just in the stock market. If, for example, you see Shark Tank, the TV show Shark Tank, a lot of the sharks there will get dividends from some of the companies that they're investing into. So it's a great way to diversify a little bit. And on top of this, what's great about it is that in most cases, you can get taxed what we call long-term capital gains rather than short-term capital gains or individual income tax. Okay, so long-term capital gains, and I'm not an accountant, so you have to consult with a tax advisor on this, but the idea here is that with long-term capital gains, it'll max out at about 20% in the United States. Most people will fall into the 15% category for long-term capital gains, and so you're paying much less in taxes most likely than what people might be paying with earned income, which maxes out at 37%. This is the exact reason why so many people who are making millions of dollars, or you'll see billionaires, and people will get angry. They say, why did this billionaire have a 22% tax rate when I had a 36% tax rate or a 37% tax rate? Why is that the case? How did that happen? And the reason for it is because these billionaires in a lot of cases are taking advantage of dividends, they're taking advantage of interest income, and they're taking advantage of some of the other ones that I'm going to show you in this video. So the next one here is what we call royalty income. So this one is really interesting. It can be a total source of passive income, which is this buzzword everybody loves, passive income. But the idea here, to give you An example is, let's say that Disney owns Star Wars, right? And a toy manufacturer wants to sell toys with somehow incorporating the Star Wars name into those toys. Well, they can't just go out and do that because they get sued by Disney. So what they might do, they contact Disney, say, hey, we'll give you a portion of the revenue or a portion of the profits from these toys that we're selling if we can just use the Star Wars logo and some maybe different Star Wars people. I never watched a Star Wars movie. I don't know. But the different Star Wars people in our toys, and then we'll give you a royalty. We'll give you a percentage of the sales or profits from this toy that we're selling to Star Wars, to Disney, right? Disney makes a ton of money off of royalties where everybody else is going out and using their name, and because they're using their name, they're getting a portion of that check. This goes with music, this goes with art. A lot of artists can get royalties, a lot of intellectual property. All right, so there's 3 more types of income, and one of them is real estate. Now, they're not making any more land, and people always need a place to live. This is why this could be something that you definitely want to consider getting into at some point to diversify your income stream. So there's 4 ways that you can primarily make money through real estate, through cash flows. So if you have tenants and you're getting paid $1,000 per month from this tenant, but it only costs you $800 per month to own and operate this property, then you might be cash flowing $200 per month. Then there's appreciation. So this property likely will go up in value over time. There is tax benefits from having real estate investments, and then you can also have a loan payment from your tenants. So your tenants can essentially pay for your mortgage for this property that you own. It's much more complicated than that, but that's the basics of it. So real estate can really be an interesting one to get into. It's something that I'm getting into myself, and it's something that everybody should just look at. So number 2 is capital gains. This is one we're just going to touch on briefly because you can incorporate a lot of different ones within this, but this is essentially what we call asset appreciation. So this is when you buy something and then you sell it for a higher price at a later time because it appreciated in value. So you could think about property as this. You could think about stocks. You could think about a variety of other things. That's an asset that you're buying, that you're selling later. And in a lot of cases, like we said earlier, is a long-term capital gains tax. So you're taxed at a lower rate than you would be with earned income. And number 1 here is what we call business income. Now, there's a little bit of a difference here between this type of business income that we're talking about and, say, self-employment. So with self-employment, you may, let's say you're a landscaper and you don't have any employees, but you go out and you do landscaping jobs and you set your own hours, you set your own pay, how much you want to get paid for it. That's self-employed, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about business owners where you are essentially outsourcing. So you're maybe hiring employees, and every employee that you send out into the field, you pay them $15 an hour, but you're making $25 per hour off of those employees. You're making $10 per hour per employee that you're sending out into the work, maybe landscaping properties for you. And so you're able to outsource and scale this business or this company. And this is how you see a lot of billionaires made. This is, if somebody asked what's the best way to invest $100 in 2019, I would say it's by starting your own business, because if you put $100 into the stock market and a year later you can get 50% returns on your money, which is very, very good compared to the average returns of about 7 to 10% per year. If you can get 50% of the stock market, you made $50 off of a $100 investment. $100 investment into a business, you can grow it 10,000%. You can grow it 1,000,000% in a year. There's really no limit as to how much you could grow that money for yourself starting a business. This is why a lot of billionaires today started with a very small amount of money, built it up with their own business. For example, Mark Cuban, like we mentioned earlier, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, they all started from the beginning with a business, and that's one of the best ways to grow your money as fast as possible. So those are the 7 different types of income sources that we mentioned in this video. Hopefully you found some value in it. If you did, thanks for watching. Make sure you share this with somebody who might find some value in it as well. Thank you, and I'll see everybody in the next video.